What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. My name is Kyle Yates. I'll be with you for the next hour answering your start-sit questions for what is actually Week 13 now. We are finally done with Week 12. Felt like Groundhog Day there for a little bit. Felt like that was never going to end. Actually, the longest week ever in NFL history we are coming off of, but we are finally in Week 13. I have just finished my rankings for this week because now I have the data to go back. It's just a mess, but hey, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we walk through these rankings together and make sure that we are prepared for a crucial week of the fantasy football season, right? Week 13, this is going to determine whether you're watching this and you get into the playoffs in your league, or if you end up as the 3 seed, the 1 seed, the 6 seed, 8 seed, whatever. It's a big week, so we're going to make sure that you are prepared and ready to go. Before we get into answering your questions, please take 2 seconds out of your day and hit the subscribe button if you have not done so. You can find that right below the screen here, the subscribe button. Make sure to hit the like button as well. Helps us out in a big way. And again, it just takes 2 seconds. So make sure that you do that. And you can find and follow me on Twitter at KyleYNFL and also over on Instagram at KyleYNFL. What I've been doing previously has been going through and talking about some of my favorite start sits of the week. But what I'm really just going to do here, guys, like I've been doing it here recently, is just getting right into your start sit questions, right? This is what you're here for, to make sure that you have your voice heard and able to bounce the ideas that you have off of an analyst here. So what I will do is I'm just going to dive right in. And in that process, I'm sure that we're going to talk about some of my favorite starts, the guys who I'm a little bit higher on than ECR this week. Again, an ECR stands for Expert Consensus Ranking. You can find that over at FantasyPros.com. All right, so first question here, full PPR, start 2 at wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson. A great question. Starting two of those is going to be pretty difficult here because you do have some top-tier options. DeAndre Hopkins, yes, it's a tougher matchup here. This is a situation where he hasn't really come through for fantasy managers here recently, but yet it's DeAndre Hopkins. You still start this guy, right? Like this is an absolute still start him, fire him up. So then he's someone that I'm considering. The two that I would be sitting, Cooper Kupp just is very volatile. He's someone that at this point of the fantasy football season, we can't really trust him. So I think with Cooper Kupp, yes, he's still in my top 24 wide receivers, don't get me wrong, but yet when you're comparing them to the rest of the options that you have there, I think that I would be sitting Cooper Kupp there. And then Deontay Johnson, A.J. Brown, smash spot. I've got him as a top 5 receiver this week. Deontay Johnson is the one that I would be looking to sit if in comparison to these other options. I've got Deontay Johnson as a mid-range wide receiver too. Still think that he is phenomenal. Still think that he is going to see a ridiculous amount of targets. Struggled with drops last week, yesterday. So it's a little concerning. So if you want to sit Deontay Johnson and Cooper Kupp, those would be the ones that are a little bit lower in my rankings. Otherwise, I think that you've got some really solid options there. I can't see the rest of your question, unfortunately, so I'm going to move on. Kenyon Drake or Wayne Gallman this week? Wayne Gallman, I'm still waiting at this point to hear if Devontae Freeman is going to be activated off of IR. That's a situation that we need to monitor. If Devontae Freeman is out, I'm still going to go with Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake, I have a little bit higher than ECR this week. I think that based on his workload, what he's been seeing recently, and yes, we have the concern of Kyler Murray, like what happens if his shoulder starts to get back to full health and he can now push the ball deep downfield? What does that do for Kenyon Drake's target totals that he's been seeing? But as of right now, I see no reason why you should be sitting Kenyon Drake. So Drake at RB15 in my rankings, I believe right now. Wayne Gallman's a little bit further down. He'll probably end up at like 19 or 20, even if Devontae Freeman sits. If Devontae Freeman plays, then you get Wayne Gallman out of your lineup. David Galler, need 2 of these, 3 in standard. Miles Sanders, James Robinson, and David Montgomery. Yeah, at this point, I'm starting James Robinson and David Montgomery. Miles Sanders is super concerning. You look at the matchup. I just finished writing up this game in my article. You look at the matchup, everything says start Miles Sanders, right? But we have no guarantee that he's going to see 12-plus touches in this game. And it's very sad to say that, but we don't have that. We don't have that guarantee. We don't have that to fall back on. Whereas with David Montgomery, you know that he's going to get work. You know that it's a phenomenal matchup. And James Robinson, you know that he's getting 20 touches in a phenomenal matchup. So I think Miles Sanders, though, you're starting to see Boston Scott's snap percentage jump up here a little bit too, which is concerning. So I think, I would be I'd be sitting Miles Sanders in that situation, and I'd be going with James Robinson and David Montgomery. I have both of those guys as top 12 options this week. I've got no quarterbacks. I need a win to make it to the playoffs. Help. So your options here are Taysom Hill. You mentioned Trubisky, Goff, or Rivers. So Goff is not in consideration for me whatsoever. Taysom Hill is the highest ranked player that I've got. He falls just inside my top 12 quarterbacks on the week. He lit up this Atlanta defense 2 weeks ago. As far as a passer, was incredibly efficient, and then also finding the end zone. Now he's got 4 rushing touchdowns in his 2 games that he started. So he's given you a safe enough floor, and yet if he does start to lean back into, in a game where they're going to have to throw more than they did against Denver and Kendall Hinton at quarterback, right? So I think Taysom Hill is the safest option here. Trubisky is the one who's a wild card. You're looking at the matchup here against Detroit, and he has just absolutely lit up Detroit anytime he's played them. And last week, I mean, for everything, for the boneheaded interceptions on primetime, and we could talk about the offense as a whole, he finishes the QB6 on the week. So he can give you a big performance here. So Trubisky would be the next in line. Phillip Rivers then would be after that, because with Rivers, you have the concern, what happens if Indianapolis just runs the ball 30 times in this game against the Houston Texans defense that has just been gashed routinely by the run. So I think Rivers doesn't present as high of a ceiling. Yes, it's a great matchup. He's been performing for fantasy football, so he's still in the streaming conversation for me, but he falls just a little bit behind Trubisky, and Taysom Hill is inside my top 12. All right. Talking about the options here. Okay, Myles Gaskin or Wayne Gallman. So again, I don't have clarity yet on Myles Gaskin, and I don't have clarity on Devontae Freeman, something that we're still waiting for here. Myles Gaskin looked close to returning last week. Didn't happen. So I think we could maybe expect him back this week, but it's not a guarantee. So with Myles Gaskin, if he does play, you also have Salvon Ahmed returning to practice in a limited fashion yesterday. What does this backfield look like if Myles Gaskin and Salvon Ahmed are both healthy? Ahmed's been performing extremely well. He's been playing really, really well. Does Myles Gaskin get his majority of the workload back? Like, what does this backfield look like? So Myles Gaskin, if he does play, he's probably not going to be more than he'll be probably right next to Wayne Gallman, honestly, in my rankings, because we just have concerns about what does the workload here look like for Myles Gaskin against Cincinnati. If we knew for certain that Salvon Ahmed was out, then fire up Myles Gaskin as a top 15 option. So there's a lot here that can change my answer, is essentially what I'm hinting at here. So yeah, I think as of right now, you just got to wait. And luckily you have that time to wait. This is one of the situations where I'll say, come back on Sunday morning, again, here at the youtube.com, Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros for our live streams. Ask that question again. We'll have a little bit more clarity. All right. We got some more questions. So 4-point standard league, trust Kyler Murray versus the Rams or stream this week. So Roberto, it all depends on your options of what you have available to you. If you have someone like Kirk Cousins sitting there on your waiver wire, then I'm fine sitting Kyler Murray to play Kirk Cousins this week against Jacksonville. Now, if we get clarity, this all hinges upon Kyler Murray's shoulder. Because once we saw Kyler Murray get nicked up on that Thursday night football game, he hasn't looked the same since. He hasn't been pushing the ball deep downfield. He hasn't been running as much. He just doesn't look the same. So if we get clarity from the coaching staff, which I don't know if we will, why would the coaching staff leak that information, right, before the game to say that Kyler Murray's shoulder is back to 100% and he's going to be throwing the ball all over the yard? I don't know why they would leak that information, right? That's kind of a competitive advantage for them. So as of right now, I think that if you want to play it safe and you want to go with someone like Kirk Cousins or Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Cincinnati, if he gets the start, there's rumors that Tua Tagovailoa might be back for this game. Again, a lot up in the air this week as far as injury news. So, or even like if you want it, I think Trubisky would probably be the end of that radar where I would say, or that range where I would say like, yeah, that's a situation, that's a situation where, okay, at that point you play Kyler Murray, right? That's a little bit more risky, but yeah, if you want to play someone who's in that same range as far as Kirk Cousins in my rankings, then I've got no problem with that. Should I start Aguilar this week? With Aguilar against the Jets, I think that you can look to start him. Now, I talked about him on the Start Sit podcast that we did yesterday with Dan and Tags, and I said that he's at 39 in ECR. He's at 32 in my wide receiver rankings this week. So he is someone that you can roll into your lineup as a low-end wide receiver 3. For everything that for how bad Derek Carr looked last week against Atlanta, I mean, he still provided fantasy relevance for Nelson Aguilar. Aguilar didn't crush your lineup, right? So I think against the Jets, it's one of those things where you just start your wide receivers against the Jets, and Aguilar has as good of a chance to reel in a touchdown as any of these guys. So yeah, I think Aguilar should be in your starting lineup, but again, all depends on for who. Coming back to the first question that I talked about, they reposted their question, so I want to get back to that. So I mentioned the wide receivers that I would play. You play DeAndre Hopkins, and you start A.J. Brown there. But then start 3 at running back: Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, and Raheem Mostert. Goodness. Okay, so Austin Eckler for sure, Aaron Jones for sure, and then if you want to, I've got Gibson and Montgomery back-to-back in my rankings. Gibson seeing a tremendous amount of work here recently, obviously with the 3 touchdown performance on Thanksgiving. Like, that caught a ton of people's attention. So I think with Gibson, if you want to roll him into your lineup, I still think that he's a safe option. But David Montgomery has a little bit more upside due to the matchup going up against the Lions, and then Antonio Gibson up against Pittsburgh. I don't think that there's as much of a ceiling for Antonio Gibson to go off for multiple touchdowns. David Montgomery could. So they're back-to-back in my rankings. I would personally say at this point of the week, I'm fine starting the first 3 that you mentioned there of Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, and David Montgomery. Let's find some new questions. Why don't we? Let's go Cam Newton, Wentz, or Tua. Man, not excited about any of those options, really. I think Tua is the option if he plays. Phenomenal matchup. Carson Wentz, I don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. Cam Newton is just, I don't know what the heck's going on with Cam Newton. And from a passing perspective, he can't get it done. 84 total yards last week. Like, that is just not going to get it done. Where if he doesn't find the end zone as a runner, you have nothing to fall back on, right? You have no floor whatsoever for Cam Newton. So at this point, I don't think you can trust Cam Newton. In a couple of leagues that I'm playing in that are like crucial matchups, I'm dropping Cam Newton to pick up Mitchell Trubisky. Feels great. So I think Tua is the answer here if he does indeed play, just due to the matchup. But then Cam Newton would probably be the next one that I would go with because again, I don't want to go near Carson Wentz. You look at that last week against Seattle, that you look at his stats and you're like, okay, well, he put together a decent fantasy day. It all came on the back of one big Hail Mary play that Richard Rodgers reeled in on a tip ball. Like, that is just something that you cannot project or predict. If he didn't have that, he was going to crush your fantasy football lineup. So neither of these guys are ones that I'm super, super excited about, but Tua would be the one that I think brings the most safety. Goddard or Jonnu in full PPR. It hinges on whether Zach Ertz returns to the lineup this week. Even if Zach Ertz returns, I still think that I'll have Goddard 1 or 2 spots above Jonnu. We just can't trust Jonnu Smith, even in a fantastic matchup. It hurts me, it pains me, but we can't trust Jonnu Smith at this point. So I think Goddard should see at least a few targets, and that's more than we can ask with Jonnu Smith right now. Is Kamara a start this week? Absolutely. He's still low-end running back 1 for me. He's still someone that you absolutely plug into your lineup, but we can't be viewing him as a top 3 option yet again. So I think with Kamara, this is something that, yeah, you plug him into your lineup, but for right now, we have to be downgrading him. So if you have some of those top tier options, then yeah, I think you start him over Kamara, but yet it's unlikely that you have, 2 of the top 8 running backs. I think I've got Kamara at 9. Hunter Henry or Dallas Goedert in full PPR. Again, if Zach Ertz plays, then this obviously hurts Dallas Goedert a little bit here, but Hunter Henry at this point, top 3 weekly option with his target totals that he's seeing and the production that he's finding in the end zone. Yeah, you got to start Hunter Henry. I think even if Zach Ertz sits, I would probably be playing Hunter Henry over Dallas Goedert. Now, I would have Dallas Goedert as a top 5 option, but I think that you still got to go Hunter Henry there. McKissick, Aguilar, Boyd, or Lazard at the flex. I'm going to go Lazard here just because I want to swing for the fences in this one. I think that Aguilar can certainly perform in a plus matchup, but Lazard is the one who's intriguing for me here with his ability to just find the end zone. You're starting to see him come back, be more active in the offense, coming a little bit further removed from his injury, should be even more healthy at this point. So Lazard is the one that I would be considering there. Tyler Boyd is very, very difficult for me to trust at this point. He's outside my top 36 receivers this week. I really do not want to go anywhere near Tyler Boyd if I can avoid it. So it's between Lazard and Aguilar for me. McKissick at this point, unless it's a full PPR league, I'm not looking at McKissick over these guys. So yeah, I will go with I'll go with Lazard there because I think he has the best chance to find the end zone. Drop Gardner Minshew at this point. Yeah, I don't think that you're going to feel comfortable plugging him into your lineup first week back, even if he does get the start. Coming back first week into the fantasy playoffs. So I just think that you drop him and let someone else deal with that. Full PPR: David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, or Chris Carson. Great question. In a full PPR, again, Montgomery and Gibson are right there for me. These guys are back-to-back in my rankings. They are both solid options this week. So Chris Carson is a little bit further down because what does this offense look like? What's his carry total going to be? Was last week a one-time occurrence just with them working him back in off of injury? Like, what is the real issue here going on with Chris Carson? So I think as of right now, I'd be playing David Montgomery over Antonio Gibson in a full PPR league. But again, that is super, super close. Like, there's going to be decimal points that separate them in as far as my projections. So I'll play Montgomery due to the matchup and just hope that he finds the end zone. I think Gibson should see enough volume to return that solid value, but I don't know if he has as good of a chance to find the end zone as David Montgomery. Full PPR: J.D. McKissick, James White, or Frank Gore as a flex. I'll play. In a full PPR, you can't trust James White. Even though he found the end zone twice last week, I don't know what the heck that was about. He only saw one target, so you can't trust James White. J.D. McKissick, coming off of a bad performance, he was barely utilized. You're starting to see Antonio Gibson really start to take over this backfield, but now you're wondering, okay, with Pittsburgh, are they going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than what they did last week, up big against Dallas? So McKissick should be fine. I have him as a mid-range running back 3 in my rankings. I have James White a little bit further down than that. And then I have Frank Gore as a high-end running back 3. Now, he gets a little bit of a downgrade in a full PPR setting. But with his workload and the matchup against Las Vegas, I think that you can plug in Frank Gore and get a solid return on investment there. I think that you can get a solid floor from him. And I don't think that he's going to necessarily goose you, which J.D. McKissick or James White have the potential to. And Frank Gore could find the end zone in this one. So I will play Frank Gore there. Should I add Madison or Booker? I'm in a full PPR league. I'm going to add one handcuff player. I'm just not sure which one. Great question. So if it's a full PPR league, I might give the slight edge there to Devontae Booker because I think that he actually could potentially even start this week. Whereas Alexander Madison, I don't think that he starts this week or gets super involved, even though Dalvin Cook is a little bit banged up. Madison is just simply a hold. Now he should be rostered everywhere. Alexander Madison, we talked about that on the Waiver Wire podcast, Waiver Wire live stream. We talked about that a lot this week. So Madison should be rostered, but yet in comparison to Devontae Booker, especially in a full PPR league, I'm going to give Booker the slight edge there because of his involvement in the receiving game, but then also because he has the potential to actually start this week, which Madison does not, in my opinion. So I'll go after Devontae Booker. Should I start Thielen and Jefferson at wide receiver 2 and flex, or should I start Thielen or Jefferson and Benny Snell no, you fire up Thielen and Jefferson in this matchup against Jacksonville. Fire them up. Both are going to be solid options here, and I like Kirk Cousins a lot this week, which means that you need to be looking at Thielen and Jefferson. How are we feeling about Zeke? He's a low-end RB2 for me. This is just a situation going up against Baltimore. Even if Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell are both out for this game, 2 strong defensive linemen on the Ravens, it's just not a situation that I want to mess with. So you might be forced to. You might be forced to roll out Ezekiel Elliott, but if I have the choice, I'm going to try to avoid Zeke if I can. Evan Ingram or Dallas Goedert in half PPR. Evan Ingram would probably be the answer, but yet we have the quarterback change here with Colt McCoy stepping in for an injured Daniel Jones. So, and then Dallas Goedert has a situation of, okay, do we actually see Zach Ertz come back this week? So it's a concern. I'm not super excited about either one of them as of right now, but yet I do think that you still got to go. I'll go with Goddard if Zach Ertz is out, obviously. But then if Zach Ertz plays, then I will play Evan Ingram. Deebo Samuel or Tyler Lockett this weekend. I'll play Deebo Samuel. Deebo at this point has done nothing for me to think that I can't plug him into my starting lineup as a solid high-end wide receiver 3, if not more. Tyler Lockett, he's a great option. He comes with enormous potential, but I don't think he's going to Debo comes with a little bit more consistency. You know that they're going to get the ball in his hand. Tyler Lockett could take a back seat yet again to DK Metcalf. So yeah, I think I'll play Debo Samuel there. Kamara or Latavius Murray. Crazy that we're at this point asking this question, but I will still play Kamara there. You're looking at Latavius Murray, 2 touchdowns last week. Obviously, a great performance, but yet, again, I mentioned that game, they had no choice. Like, that defense just gave up, right? Like, and why wouldn't they? You're looking at going into that game with Kendall Hinton at quarterback. They had no chance whatsoever. So, Latavius Murray, 2 rushing touchdowns last week. I don't want to bank on that. He's certainly more involved than he is with Drew Brees behind center, but yet he's not at the point where I think you can rank him over Kamara. Kamara's a low-end running back 1 in my rankings. Latavius Murray, a high-end running back 3. Ezekiel Elliott or Antonio Gibson in the flex. I'll play Antonio Gibson in that situation. Hayden Hurst, Evan Ingram, or Robert Tonyan in full PPR. I might go Tonyan here. Hayden Hurst, the offense here is just a question mark. What does it look like if Julio plays? What does it look like if it doesn't? I still think that you can start Hayden Hurst, but yet in comparison with Evan Ingram and Robert Tonyan, I'll go with Robert Tonyan. He's been performing here recently. Finishes the tight end 7 and the tight end 2 each of the past 2 weeks. Murray or Tannehill in full PPR, so I'll go with Tannehill. Tannehill up against Cleveland comes with less question marks here. Now, you could easily see Derrick Henry run for, like he did last week, 3 touchdowns, and Tannehill take a back seat, but yet this is a matchup that you just exploit at the quarterback position and wide receivers. A.J. Brown should have a massive day, and I want pieces of that. So Tannehill for me. I've got Tannehill all the way up at 4 this week. Start 2, Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, or Brandon Cooks. I'll start Allen Robinson and Calvin Ridley. Ridley, questionable at this point, I think popped up on the injury report, if memory serves correctly, but I expect him to play. Even if Julio Jones is back in the lineup, that actually might help Calvin Ridley. So, yeah, Allen Robinson and Calvin Ridley. Brandon Cooks, still a very solid option this week, but very, very tough matchup. I want to see what he looks like first week back here, or first week without Will Fuller. What does this offense look like? What does Deshaun Watson look like? And up against the Indianapolis Colts, I want to try to avoid Brandon Cooks in this situation. I still think that you can start Brandon Cooks, but yet with Allen Robinson and Calvin Ridley, who are both top 10 options for me, you got to start them. Full PPR, Latavius Murray versus Akers versus Kirk. I will go with Latavius Murray in that situation. I am not ready to trust Cam Akers yet, especially in such a crucial matchup. We know that Latavius Murray is going to see more work. He has more guaranteed volume than Cam Akers does. So Akers can always pop off that big run. And Christian Kirk, I would love him in this matchup if I knew that Kyler Murray was completely healthy. I don't know that. So Latavius Murray is probably going to be my answer here. Hawkinson or Goddard, in this situation, I'll play Hawkinson. Even if Zach Ertz is out, I'll still play Hawkinson there, but both are top 5 options for me. Taysom Hill or Ryan Tannehill, I'll play Ryan Tannehill there. Cousins, Wilson, or Tannehill, I will play Tannehill there. I've got Russell Wilson just a little bit lower in my rankings. Deontay Johnson or Devontae Parker. If Ryan Fitzpatrick plays, then I will play Devontae Parker. If Tua Tagovailoa plays, then I will play Deontay Johnson. 2 running backs in a flex, Mostert, Drake, Gallman, Hunt, or David Johnson in a standard league. I will play... Well, David Johnson, I don't know if he comes back this week. So that's a situation. I think they activated his 21-day return window, but it doesn't mean that he's coming back this week. So even if he does, tough matchup. Not really looking to plug him into my lineup. Drake for sure. I'll go with Mostert. And then Kareem Hunt is probably the next one, but I'm not super excited about Kareem Hunt. I've got him down at 20 in my rankings this week. It's just he's offering very little upside in the passing game. Wayne Gallman might have Devontae Freeman to deal with. Caleb, really, really tough question for me to answer right now. I think that's another one where I'm going to say come back on Sunday morning. We'll do our best to get that answered because as of right now, I just don't have enough clarity on David Johnson or Wayne Gallman to be able, in their situations, to be able to provide insight. So as of right now, it's Mostert, Drake, and Hunt, but that could easily change. Woods, Swift, or Sanders. So I will play... Well, Swift is progressing still through the concussion protocol. It's not a great sign. So I'm not super excited about DeAndre Swift this week. Miles Sanders, not super excited about him this week. You're starting to see Goff lean back on Robert Woods here. He's now seen 27 targets over the past 2 weeks. And that's volume that I want to lean into, especially in a full PPR league. So I'll go with Robert Woods there. Mostert or Diggs in the flex. Even though the offense doesn't look the same without John Brown, I will play Stephon Diggs. Any word on Galladay? Did not practice yesterday yet again. So at this point, I do not think that he's going to play this week. Obviously, that can change with practice reports today and tomorrow. But as of right now, not really looking to play, or not really expecting Kenny Galladay to play. And even if he does come back next week, I'm not trusting him. Week 1 back in the lineup after this injury. I don't know what the heck's going on with him. So yeah, it's a situation where I'm trying to avoid. Do you think James Conner will be back for Week 14? Hard to say. With James Conner, tested positive. And then after that, I have not heard anything else. I went digging for this earlier today. I can't find anything else on James Conner. So I think that it's highly unlikely that he returns for Week 13. And we just don't know. With him obviously having the background of a cancer survivor, and obviously like my thoughts and prayers are with him as he's affected by COVID, and maybe dealing with some of these symptoms and more vulnerable in more of a vulnerable state, like that's a concern. And so we don't know what it's going to do. What is he going to come back from this completely healthy, ready to roll Week 14, practices in full? There's a lot that has to play out before I can say with any sort of confidence that James Conner is going to be back in Week 14. So if you have Conner heading into your fantasy football playoffs, this is a situation that you really didn't want to see happen. But it's 2020, and we've all had to deal with some of these situations. So, yeah, I think as of right now, I would be very pessimistic that Conner comes back in Week 14. Michael Pittman Jr. or DJ Chark. DJ Chark, obviously a question mark as to whether or not he's going to play. Even if he does, no, I think you got to go Chark there. Both great matchups for these wide receivers, Chark against Minnesota and Michael Pittman Jr. up against Houston, who no longer has Bradley Roby. So I think both of these guys are really solid options, but I think DJ Chark would get the slight edge there for me. Should I trade Calvin Ridley for Miles Sanders? No. At this point, I'm not going anywhere near Miles Sanders as far as trading for him. If I've got him, I'll continue to plug him into my lineup if I don't have better options, but I think you got to look at Miles Sanders as a low-end running back 2 right now. With his workload decreasing, you're starting to see Boston Scott's snap percentage start to increase. Even Miles Sanders' snap percentage is starting to decrease here too. So it's concerning. Calvin Ridley's a top-tier fantasy football wide receiver. You keep him. Brandon Cooks or Deebo Samuel in a full PPR, that's more of the conversation and range. Really difficult for me to say with any sort of certainty right now, but I will look at my rankings and... Again, this is right now. This can very easily change as we get more information moving into Sunday. But I have Brandon Cooks at 20, and I have Deebo Samuel at 23. So as of right now, I would be personally playing Brandon Cooks, but that's going to be something that I'll have to dig into a little bit more as we get closer to Sunday. That could easily change. But as of right now, it's Brandon Cooks for me. What are your thoughts from Mixon in the playoffs? So if Mixon was returning this week, then that would be great because we would have 1 week before we, had to make that decision of plugging him into our lineups. With Mixon coming back, or at least being eligible to return in Week 14, at least that's my understanding, then that's going to be a very risky situation. And we don't even know if he's going to be activated off of IR. What the heck is this foot injury, right? Like we just have no clarity on that whatsoever to know whether or not Mixon's actually going to be back. So if Mixon comes back, it's going to be very interesting to see where I rank him because I don't think that you can have confidence that he's going to be back and receive his clear-cut workload, the top-tier workload, and he can be someone who can help you win a fantasy football, matchup in the playoffs. I just don't think that that's going to be the situation. So if you have Mixon, and which I do, and I'm heading into the playoffs in a lot of my dynasty leagues, and I have Mixon everywhere in dynasty, it's like, okay, I have to make that decision. Do I play Joe Mixon Week 14? I personally probably am not going to. If he comes back, I'm going to wait a week to see, okay, what does he look like? Did he receive the majority of his workload? And then I make that decision in Week 15 if I do advance. So it's a tough situation for fantasy managers who have been waiting and hoping for Joe Mixon to come back. But this is just where we're at with the IR and with his foot injury. We just got to wait and see. I would recommend waiting if he does indeed come back week 14. Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, or J.K. Dobbins in a full PPR. Dobbins will obviously be eligible to return. He was eligible to return this past week, but wasn't activated. So J.K. Dobbins against Dallas is probably going to be my answer here. Kenyon Drake's in consideration. Todd Gurley, I don't want to go anywhere near him personally at this point of the season with how inefficient he's been. It's just a situation that I want to avoid. So J.K. Dobbins probably going to be my answer there. We saw him get the majority of the touches the last time out, and he's one of the most talented running backs that we've seen enter the NFL in quite a while. So I think that in this running scheme, he can absolutely be a person who can help you get into the fantasy football playoffs. So up against Dallas, I think that's a great matchup. He'll probably end up as a high-end running back 2 in my rankings. Kenyon Drake probably just behind him. Todd Gurley as a low-end running back 2. In a full PPR, Reed or Higbee, if Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee are both active, you don't go anywhere near either of them. So Jordan Reed for me, I've got Reed at 14 right now in my tight end rankings, 14 or 15. Goddard or Engram, I think I answered that one earlier. Full PPR, Amari Cooper or Deebo Samuel. As of right now, I'll go Deebo Samuel. Amari Cooper in the Dallas offense up against Baltimore, not super excited to be playing those guys. So Deebo Samuel for me there, he's just seeing too much work in this offense. Dobbins, Swift, or Galladay in my flex. Well, you might have your answer with 2 of those guys with Swift and Galladay. So I think that it's Galladay I'm not expecting to play. Swift, major question marks on whether or not he's going to be able to clear concussion protocol. And then, so Dobbins, either way, I think is going to be the answer there. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, or Ryan Tannehill. I'll go Ryan Tannehill. Corey Davis or Brandon Ayuk or Sterling Shepard. I'll go Corey Davis there. I answered that one. I have Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Michael Pittman Jr., Deebo Samuel, and Nelson Aguilar. Pick 2 and maybe 1 for the flex. Well, then you just play Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, and I will go with Deebo Samuel there. Pittman would be next, and then Aguilar. Full PPR, Latavius, I answered that one earlier. Answered that one. Amari Cooper or Jarvis Landry. I will play... it's a lot closer than I thought it would be. I think as of right now, I would still be playing Amari Cooper. Yeah, as of right now, I have Amari Cooper at 22 and Jarvis Landry at 26. So they're in the same tier. So go with your gut there. I think Jarvis Landry should soak up targets in this matchup yet again. And he can, I think he can easily provide you more of a ceiling than Amari Cooper against Baltimore. So if you want to play the upside game, if it's a matchup that you know that you have to win, then I think Jarvis Landry offers you a little bit more upside there. Let's see, what do we got? Cousins or Fitzpatrick. If Fitzpatrick plays, I'll still play Cousins, but those guys are going to be back-to-back in my rankings. As of right now, I have Kirk Cousins at 12. I have Ryan Fitzpatrick at 13. So obviously the Fitzpatrick comes with the question mark of Tua Tagovailoa. Do we see Tua play this week? In that case, obviously you're not playing Ryan Fitzpatrick. So how do you feel between Robert Woods and Justin Jefferson this week? Man, I think I'll give the slight edge there to Justin Jefferson, even with Adam Thielen back in the lineup. Robert Woods is a high-end wide receiver 2 in my rankings, but Justin Jefferson, I think he has to be inside your top 12 with this matchup here and the way that Cousins has been playing recently. Let's see. Watson or Tannehill? I have Tannehill ranked higher as of right now. Murray or Tannehill? I'll go Tannehill there. Need a quarterback for this week. Kirk Cousins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Derek Carr. All three. I think I have Cousins at 12, Fitzpatrick at 13 right now, and Derek Carr at 15. So I would personally be playing Kirk Cousins. He's been on fire recently, and I think that you go with him. You have a little bit more trust with Kirk Cousins than you do with Derek Carr, who just absolutely crushed your fantasy football lineup last week. Full PPR, Lockett or Deontay Johnson. I might go Deontay Johnson there and lean into the guaranteed target workload. With Lockett, he obviously comes with a higher ceiling than Deontay Johnson, but yet I think Deontay Johnson is just a solid play every single week. Even if he struggled with drops last week, you still continue to plug him into your lineup. I have Josh Jacobs. If it looks as if he's a no-go or may split carries with Booker, who is the better pickup, Wayne Gallman or Jonathan Taylor? Jonathan Taylor for sure. Jonathan Taylor at this point should be rostered in your league. I'm surprised that he's available. I think that he absolutely could turn into a league winner with his match or with his schedule if he does receive the majority of the touches like we saw 2 weeks ago. So he didn't test positive for COVID-19. I think that he is going to step right back into this workload. And Jordan Wilkins banged up at this point. So I would be shocked if Jordan Wilkins plays at this point, even if he does. I don't think that he's going to see any sort of significant, workload in this game. So Jonathan Taylor, I've got him at 12 right now in my running back rankings. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or I'm guessing Latavius Murray. In that situation, I'll still go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but it's a closer conversation than it should be. The Chiefs are just not giving CEH the ball here. At 12 touches last week, it's not enough to get the job done. Now he's in the best offense in the NFL, so he always comes with the potential that he can find the end zone, but it's just a risky game. So I think it's CEH as of right now. But Murray is definitely closer, and I don't want to overreact to Latavius Murray's 2-touchdown game last week, right? We've seen this happen before this season where he's gone off for a touchdown or two, and then everyone scrambles to pick him up and play him, and then he goes back to being barely utilized. And again, I don't want to overreact to a game where the other team didn't have a starting quarterback, right? So where the Saints were just able to run the ball all over the Denver Broncos. I answered that one. I answered that one. Tannehill or Herbert this week. I'll go. Oh man. Those guys are like back to back. I will go. I'll go Tannehill there, as of right now. It's pretty close. Again, I just mentioned they're back to back in my rankings. So, but yeah, I think I'll go Tannehill there. J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor in Standard League. I will play. Oh man, that's close. Both of them have question marks. Those guys are probably going to be back to back in my rankings. You guys are asking really good questions. I'll play Jonathan Taylor. I'll play the matchup. Even though Dallas is a great matchup for opposing running backs too, I'll play the matchup here with Jonathan Taylor. But again, that is super tough to be able to say. Do you trust Dallas Goedert moving forward? No, because, well, all depends on what you mean by trust. Do I trust him as a top 5 option? No, because Zach Ertz is coming back. So at that point, they just kind of cancel each other out. And especially with this offense, I don't want to trust the tight end too in this offense in Philly with the way it's looking recently. So yeah, just not really looking to keep plugging in Dallas Goedert into my starting lineup. Matt Ryan or Trubisky or Kirk Cousins. Let me double check where I have Matt Ryan. I can't remember where I've put him. It's loading. I have Matt Ryan at 18 right now, so I think he falls out against the Saints. It's just not a matchup that I'm looking to, especially in such a crucial week. I'm not looking to trust Matt Ryan. I've got Kirk Cousins at 9, and then I've got Mitchell Trubisky at 14 right now. So Kirk Cousins, people say, well, like, you can't trust Matt Ryan, but you can trust Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, his past 5 games, QB 25, QB 18, QB 11, QB 5, and QB 3. Like, he's just been on absolute fire here recently. So I think against the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is a matchup where you start Kirk Cousins. Robert Tonyan or Hayden Hurst. I'll play Tonyan there. Wayne Gallman or David Montgomery. I'll play David Montgomery there, even if Devontae Freeman's out. 2 wide receivers in a full PPR league. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, or T. Higgins. Yeah, you got to play Jefferson and Thielen there. I don't want to bet on Brandon Allen. Please pick 2 from Todd Gurley, Giovanni Bernard, Zeke, and Akers in a half PPR. Yikes. I will play Ezekiel Elliott, and I will play Todd Gurley if he plays. But I've got both of those guys as low-end running back 2s. I've got Bernard and Akers outside my top 24. Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen. Oh man, it's close. I'll play Josh Allen there. Even though the offense is not nearly the same without John Brown. Texans offense is not nearly the same without Will Fuller. So I'll go Josh Allen there, but it's pretty close. Those guys are mid-range QB1s for me. Full PPR. Michael Thomas, Deontay Johnson, and Cooper Kupp. You need to cut one of them. Okay. I don't want to cut any of them because that seems a little ridiculous unless you're playing in like a 6-man league. I will cut Cooper Kupp in that situation. He just comes with more volatility. But, man, I imagine that there's got to be someone else that you can cut besides those three. Must sit one in a full PPR. James Robinson, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Raheem Mostert. Sit one. I will sit Raheem Mostert in that situation. I'm still going to play Kamara. Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Chris Carson. I will play Chris Carson there. Taysom Hill or Ryan Tannehill. I'll play Ryan Tannehill. Who should I start? Half PPR. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson, or Austin Eckler. I will start Austin Eckler in that situation. 14 carries on the ground last week, 16 targets. Can't get away from that. Kamara or James Robinson. James Robinson pretty easily for me. Fitz, Trubisky, or Mayfield. I will play Fitz in that situation if he does indeed suit up. If Tua plays, then I'll play Trubisky. Murray or Cousins. I will play... again, it's closer because I don't know what the heck to do with Kyler Murray's shoulder injury, an issue that's limiting him. If you want to play it safe, I think you can go with Kirk Cousins. If you don't want to deal with the injury question marks there with Kyler Murray, I think you can play Cousins. I think he comes with a ridiculous upside in this matchup. Christian Kirk or Tyler Boyd. I will play... I'll play Christian Kirk there. Not excited about either one of them. Both are outside my top 36 receivers this week, so not really looking to play either one of them, but Christian Kirk, and I'll just hope that Kyler Murray's shoulder injury has fixed itself and he can get back to being targeted deep downfield. Start Julio or Kareem Hunt in the flex. Well, Julio might play this week. If Julio plays, then you play him. If Julio sits, then you play Kareem Hunt. Drop Fournette. I would not drop Fournette. Unless you absolutely have to make a pickup. Fournette still comes with upside if something were to happen to Ronald Jones. I still think that at that point you're not going to have this question of, okay, is LaShawn McCoy or Keyshawn Vaughn going to factor in the same way that we have this hanging over our heads with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. So as of right now, I still think that you hold on to Fournette because of the upside that he possesses, but he's just going to keep clogging your bench unless that happens. Do I continue to trust Antonio Gibson? Yeah, I've still got Antonio Gibson as a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. Now, I don't think he comes with the ridiculous upside that he's had in previous weeks up against Pittsburgh this week, but you still continue to trust him. Are Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette, and James White all worth dropping for Booker, Madison, and Gore in full PPR? If you've got the proper starting options ahead of them, which I would imagine that you do, you've got better running back options above, and you want to handcuff, because at this point you're not going to be playing Damian Harris over locked in top 20 options each week. James White, you're not playing him at any point, and Leonard Fournette is still kind of in that same territory of Devontae Booker and James Madison, Alexander Madison. My mind went to Hamilton there. All with Booker, Madison, and Frank Gore. Frank Gore is someone that you can plug in kind of in the same territory of a Damian Harris, where he's just going to bring you a safe floor because of his guaranteed workload, but you're never going to be playing him in the fantasy playoffs. So I think at this point I would just keep Damian Harris over Frank Gore, but I'm fine dropping Leonard Fournette and James White if you want to get Devontae Booker and Alexander Madison. I would for sure drop James White though. Lamar Jackson or Kirk Cousins. I will play Kirk Cousins this week. We don't know how the COVID situation is going to affect Lamar Jackson, and even when he's been healthy, we haven't really been super excited to plug him into our lineups. I answered that one. Start 2 this week: Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, and J.K. Dobbins. I will play. Oh man, all of these guys are high-end running back 2s for me. So just to give you some insight, I have, right now, Dobbins will move up. But I've got Dobbins at 19 right now. He will move up. I have Jonathan Taylor at 12, and I have Antonio Gibson at 11. Do I? I have him at 10. Sorry. I have Gibson at 10, Montgomery at 11, Taylor at 12, and then Dobbins at 19. So as far as starting 2 of them, I think that you've got some fantastic options. If you want to play the matchups, then you go Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. If you want to lean into the guaranteed workload, then I think you go with then I think you go with Jonathan Taylor and Antonio Gibson because of Jordan Wilkins' health status. So that's a situation that I'm going to need to continue to monitor as we move throughout the week. But as of right now, I'd be playing, if you want to go for the upside, I think you can play Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins there. Is Latavius Murray worth a flex start? Yeah, absolutely. High-end running back 3 for me this week, and he's got the scoring upside. So, again, I don't want to go crazy with Latavius Murray, but yet, as a flex player, yeah, absolutely. Seeing a ton of carries, and with Taysom Hill at quarterback, he's opening up some running lanes there for Latavius Murray. I'm in the playoffs, and we only go until Week 16. Is Kenny Golladay droppable? I don't think that he's droppable because I want one more week before I can say that Galladay's droppable, because the worst feeling in the world would be to drop him and then we find out, okay, he's out week 13, but he should be back for week 14. Again, I mentioned, if that's the case, I'm not going to feel comfortable playing Kenny Golladay, but then what happens if you drop him, the guy who you face in week 15 picks him up, and Kenny Golladay goes off for, 2 scores? Like, that would just be the absolute worst way to end your fantasy football season. So I think at this point, you got to hold on to Golladay until we get more clarity of, okay, he's not going to be fully healthy, or he's not, whatever, until we get more clarity. I think that you just got to continue to hold on to Golladay. Miles Sanders or Chris Carson in the flex in a full PPR? I'll go Chris Carson there. All right. Looking. Is Herbert trustworthy versus New England, or should I look for a streamer? No, you play Justin Herbert here. The Patriots, with Stephon Gilmore, they're a different secondary. Stephon Gilmore back in the lineup, they're a different secondary, but yet they're still allowing 8 yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks on the season. And Herbert has done nothing he just finished for the first time since week 3 outside of the top 12 quarterbacks in fantasy football. And he still threw for 316 yards or something like that off the top of my head. So, yeah, you still play Justin Herbert. I wouldn't be looking to go and mess around with the streaming quarterback game. Lockett or Julio, I will go. I'll still go Julio if he plays. And then obviously if Julio sits, then you have your answer there. Start Cam Newton or Jared Goff. Yikes. Both these guys are low-end quarterback 2s for me. I'll start Cam Newton in that situation, though. I just can't trust Jared Goff. Someone caught my Alexander Hamilton reference. Pittman or Brandon Cooks in a full PPR. I'll play Brandon Cooks there. Should Christian McCaffrey managers keep rostering Mike Davis? Yes, because we know what Mike Davis can be. Hold on. So we know what he can be. So if you go into the fantasy football playoffs, you got Christian McCaffrey, and God forbid something happens to Christian McCaffrey yet again, you don't want to be in that situation where then you're having to deal with the fab bids, the waiver wire rush, like trying to find that replacement of who you can pick up and play in place of Christian McCaffrey. I think you just got to hold on to Mike Davis if you have the room. In a standard league, Michael Pittman Jr. or Cam Akers. I'll play Michael Pittman Jr. Brandon Cooks or Cole Beasley. I'll play Brandon Cooks there pretty easily. Sit 1, Antonio Gibson, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Raheem Mostert. I will sit Raheem Mostert in that situation. Need to replace Jonnu at tight end. Pick up Jimmy Graham, Mike Gesicki, or Logan Thomas. Mike Gesicki is the most attractive option there if we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be playing again. Because at that point, he locks onto his best players. And so he's going to feed the ball to Devontae Parker. He's going to feed the ball to Mike Gesicki. And then there's very little left over for the other options. With Tua, he spreads the ball around. He sends it to who's open. So I think that's a situation where it's a little bit more concerning if Tua plays to pick up Gesicki. In that case, I'd probably go with Jimmy Graham. Not excited about it, but yet with Logan Thomas, tough matchup here against Pittsburgh. I'm not really looking to trust him. DJ Chark or Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver 2. And would you start the other over Sanders in the flex? If Chark is fully healthy, if he gets in practices this week, then I would start him over Miles Sanders in the flex. Yeah, Deebo Samuel is my answer between the two of them, but then DJ Chark would be the next one up there. Pittman, Lazard, or Aguilar. I'll play Pittman there. Is Carlos Hyde droppable? No, not at this point. Until we get word that Rashad Penny is coming back and he's going to be active and he's going to be playing. then that's a situation where you just continue to hold on to Carlos Hyde because he does come with some upside and can be plugged in if you're in a pinch. I need to drop one, Gurley or Fulgham. Drop Fulgham. Get him off your lineup, your roster. I don't want any Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver on my roster at this point. Full PPR, choose 3. Logan Thomas, Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, Antonio Gibson, Kareem Hunt, and J.K. Dobbins. Okay, or Michael Thomas. Did I say Logan Thomas? I think I said Logan Thomas. I will start Michael Thomas. I will start J.K. Dobbins, and I will start Deebo Samuel. Oh, will I? It'd be hard to sit Lockett. Oh, it'd be really hard to sit Lockett. It's between Lockett and Deebo for me. I'd say go with your gut there. I'll play Michael Thomas, Tyler Lockett. I'm going to rank Lockett higher. So I'll play Michael Thomas, Tyler Lockett, and J.K. Dobbins there. I think that Dobbins should have a great game. And Kareem Hunt, I'm just not super excited about him with what we've seen here recently. Antonio Gibson has the tough matchup. Half PPR, Dallas Goedert, Jonnu Smith, or Austin Hooper. Dallas Goedert if Zach Ertz sits one more week, and then I would go Austin Hooper if Zach Ertz plays. In standard, Cooper Kupp or Devontae Parker. I will play Devontae Parker if Ryan Fitzpatrick is at quarterback. If he isn't, then I will go to the other option. That the question disappeared from me, so I forget who it was. Evan Ingram or Jordan Reed in a full PPR. I will play Evan Ingram still. Is Slayton a must start? Absolutely not. I'm not looking to go anywhere near him with Colt McCoy at quarterback. Is Jonnu Smith droppable? It all depends on for who. It's highly unlikely that you have a better option just sitting there on your waiver wire, especially at the tight end position. So it all depends on for who. But at this point, I don't think you have to continue to start him. So yeah, he's in that conversation. What tight end do I start? Mark Andrews or Hayden Hurst? I don't think Mark Andrews. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't think that I've heard Mark Andrews is going to be playing in Week 13 here against Dallas. So I don't think that you're going to have him. So then at that point, you go Hayden Hurst. Michael Pittman or Michael Thomas this week? I'll still go Michael Thomas. He performed really well against Atlanta last time with Taysom Hill. Pick a tight end for the rest of the season in a standard league. Logan Thomas, Trey Burton, Kyle Rudolph, or Jordan Akins. I will probably go Trey Burton here. Kyle Rudolph, his fantasy value was buoyed last week by having Adam Thielen and Irv Smith out of the lineup. So I don't think you can trust Kyle Rudolph moving forward. Jordan Akins, I think he's in the streaming conversation, but he's not someone that I'm willing to fully trust just yet. Trey Burton is super involved in his offense, and I think that they're looking his way around the end zone. So, yeah, I'll go Trey Burton there. Who do I start? Robert Tonyan, Austin Hooper, or Jordan Reed? I will start Tonyan there. Let's go just a few more questions, guys. McLaurin over Julio? Yeah, I think even if Julio plays, then I think that you start Terry McLaurin over him. Trubisky, Glennon, or Dalton? I'll go with Trubisky there. I've got Trubisky as a top. I've got him at 14. Again, finishes the QB6 last week, and he's going up against Detroit. I mentioned this on the podcast, but for everyone who wants to blast Mitchell Trubisky as far as an NFL quarterback, and it's rightly deserved. He just has not progressed the way that he needed to. In 2017, fantasy managers rolled out Blake Bortles and won a fantasy football championship. He was the quarterback 1 in weeks 14 through 16. So might not be pretty, but you're looking at the upcoming schedule here for Trubisky, and you're drooling over it. Detroit, Houston, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. That is a fantastic schedule upcoming, and I think Trubisky might be able to repeat what Blake Bortles did in 2017, and it feels gross just to say that. Okay, Logan Thomas or Ebron? I'll go with Ebron. You can't ignore the target totals that he saw last week. Is Cam Akers startable? No. It all depends on who else you have on your roster, of course, but yeah, he's not going to be in that top 24 running back conversation for me. I'm not willing to buy in just yet. What do you think about Dobbins? I think he's a smash play this week. It all depends on... Yeah, I think up against Dallas, I think he's a smash play. I think he'll be the lead back like what we saw a couple weeks ago. Kamara or Devontae Parker? If Ryan Fitzpatrick plays, you got to go Devontae Parker. All right, let's go 2 more questions, guys. Miles Sanders or Raheem Mostert? I'll go Raheem Mostert there. And drop Rager? Yeah, I think you absolutely just move on from Rager. I'll go one more because that wasn't exactly the right one to end on. Chase Claypool or Justin Jefferson? I will go with Justin Jefferson there. Claypool, obviously one of the most consistent receivers that we've seen here recently. He's just been fantastic. But Justin Jefferson has a chance to absolutely go off in this matchup. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for the last hour or so. Really appreciate you guys hitting the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, liking the video here. And again, as a reminder, you can find and follow me on Twitter at Kyle White NFL. We'll be back on Sunday morning to answer your start sit questions with a little bit more information at our disposal as we just turn the corner into week 13. But thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you soon.